Coming from the previous arc that's filled with a lot of drama and slice-of-life elements, in this video, we'll be taking the action up a notch. From saving Old Man Ito from depression, let's follow Sakura and his vice captains engage in another fierce battle as they meet multiple groups of gangsters in an unfamiliar territory, some hostile and some actually very friendly. Sit back and see what happens. Let's get started. Several days later, a woman could be seen running. Someone was chasing her, asking what she was doing. The men were puzzled when the woman suddenly disappeared. They said they couldn't let her escape. Meanwhile, Sakura was visibly restless. Nire asked him what was wrong. He clarified that he was just annoyed because they dragged him out on their day off. Suwa remarked that they all hang out on their day off. Wasn't that exciting? Sakura replied that it wasn't. Nire laughed and said he understood how he feels. Besides, Tsubakino wanted to thank them personally because Old Man Ito perked up. Nire was extremely excited because he didn't expect they'd get to go to a restaurant recommended by one of the Four Kings. He looked at his notebook and said, according to the information he had, Tsubakino liked desserts. So he wondered if the recommended place was a dessert cafe. Sakura stared at him, and when asked why, he said he was curious about what happened to Nire's face. He asked if someone had done that to him. Nire fell silent and said he had just tripped, glancing at Suwa to back up his story. Suho just smiled. Sakura, however, was skeptical and asked if Suwa had been with him when it happened. Nire pushed him and said it didn't matter anymore. For now, they should just get going. Sakura agreed, but told him not to push. He asked if they were going the right way since they'd been walking for a while. Nire said they were close. Tsubakino had given him the address. He checked his phone for directions and said they just needed to turn there, and they would see it. Suwa asked if he was sure they were in the right place. Nire replied affirmatively, but was shocked when they found themselves on Kisi Street. Suwa pointed out that they were in the red light district. The place was incredibly busy, with many people inviting passers-by to visit their establishments. Nire was confused because the map directed them there. A woman in a maid costume approached Sakura and called him Master, asking if he wanted to visit their place. He was shocked by her calling him Master. Someone also offered Suwa a hot pot and beer at half price, but he declined, saying they weren't old enough to drink. Nire was also invited, but he felt very embarrassed. So, he pulled his friends along and made them stop. Nire suggested they leave and said he would contact Tsubakino to double-check the address. Sakura was annoyed because they had come so far only to turn back. Didn't Nire say they were close? Nire pulled Sakura and explained that this wasn't a place for high school students like them. Besides, they were no longer on Furin's turf. Sakura shook off his hand and asked, "The only difference in this place is it's brighter." Suddenly, a woman jumped from above. Sakura, Nire, and Suwa were all shocked. The woman landed right on top of Sakura, and Nire couldn't believe she had fallen from the sky. Suwa agreed. They asked if their friend was okay. He was irritated, while the woman quickly stood up. She asked Sakura if he was alright, which surprised him. She pulled him up and apologized, saying she was in a hurry. She checked if he was hurt. Sakura replied that it hurt more now that she was pulling his arm. Suwa thought the two seemed okay. The woman, however, was hurt, and her dress was torn. She was startled to notice she was bleeding. When she checked, she realized her necklace was also missing. Sakura asked why she was in such a hurry, jumping from such a height. The woman realized she was indeed in a rush, so she apologized and excused herself before turning to leave. Just then, the men chasing her arrived and said she had made them run all over the place. They mentioned they wouldn't make any money dealing with her troubles. They approached her, and Nire, Suwa, and Sakura were puzzled. The men claimed they were just escorting the woman, but she was causing them problems. They stared at the woman, and Nire, feeling nervous, asked Suwa about it. It was obvious the men were after the woman. One of the men asked if they were her friends. She denied it, but Sakura suddenly retorted, asking what if they were friends. Was there a problem with that? The man got irritated and told Sakura to learn his place. He threatened to beat him up, but said they didn't have time for that. He demanded they hand over the woman, or else. He didn't get to finish his threat because the woman said she would go with them. She pleaded with him not to hurt anyone else. However, Suwa and Nire stopped her. As the woman turned around, Suwa just smiled, while Nire looked worried. Sakura asked what would happen if they didn't hand over the woman. He called them losers for chasing an innocent woman to the point where she's injured. He demanded to know what they planned to do and urged them to explain the consequences. The men were irritated. Their leader responded that they got their hands full and were annoyed by this added trouble. Because of this, Sakura told Suwa that he and Nire should stay with the woman. Nire seemed to have something to say, and when Sakura looked at him, Nire said he would be fine and that he would protect himself and the woman. He told Sakura and Suwa to focus on the men in front of them. Sakura was puzzled by what Nire was saying, but Suwa insisted they trust him since Nire was insisting. He said he would still keep an eye on him. Sakura suddenly remembered what Kotoha had said about relying on the people around him and what Kaji had said about the importance of trust. So, he agreed to leave it to Nire. Nervous, Nire responded that he would handle it. The enemies were irritated by all the talking and said they didn't have time for this. They said it was time for a pounding and called them kids. Nire stood in front of the woman, while Sakura and Suwa were at the forefront. The women nearby wondered if a fight was about to break out and were nervous that it might escalate. They watched as the men chasing the woman attacked first. Some of them targeted Suwa, who was casually standing on the side. Suddenly, Suwa grabbed a guy's wrist and threw him into his companions. Meanwhile, Sakura was busy fighting as well. Several men charged at him, but he swiftly dodged their attacks. He delivered a powerful kick from above and, when another attacked from behind, executed a strong back kick. While he was busy fighting, he glanced at Nire. Despite Nire's assurance that he could protect himself and the woman, he was still worried. Another man tried to punch Sakura, but he dodged and delivered a gut punch. He was surprised when one man slipped past him and ran toward Nire. He felt anxious, but tried to remember Suwa's advice to trust Nire. So, he let it be. Meanwhile, the woman apologized to Nire. Nire was focused, repeatedly whispering to himself not to close his eyes. The woman was nervous as the attacker approached them. As the man was about to punch him, Suwa turned around. He was also nervous and shouted at Nire. Flashback to when Suwa asked Nire if it was okay for them to walk home together while Sakura was still sick. Nire agreed. He was happy when Sakura started to feel better and smiled. Nire mentioned that he had never seen Suwa freak out like that before, suggesting that Suwa must really hate Nato. Suwa asked when he had ever freaked out and said he wanted to talk to Nire. He noticed that Nire seemed down since that morning and asked what had happened. Nire explained that when they visited Sakura, he had said he wanted to be of help when Sakura's in a bind. But when he saw Sakura speaking in front of everyone, he realized that Sakura could still walk forward even when he's in a bind. At that moment, Nire realized there wasn't much he could do for Sakura. In his current state, he felt Sakura didn't need him. Suwa was surprised and was about to say that wasn't true, but Nire suddenly said he didn't want that to happen. He wanted to be by Sakura's side. He wanted to support him and help him become the top of their school. Suwa was impressed by this. Nire recalled their first meeting when he was badly beaten, but Sakura told him he wasn't lame. Nire wanted to stay true to those words and become a better version of himself that he could be proud of. If Sakura continued to move forward, then he needed to take steps forward too. So, he looked at Suwa and said it might be a lot to ask, but if Suwa could teach him how to fight, and he bowed to him. He begged Suwa. Suwa was surprised and commented that his self-confidence was all over the place. Nire was shocked by this. Suwa said that instead of teaching him to fight first, he would teach him how to protect himself. Nire was delighted and thanked Suwa. Suwa said they would work hard on that. He advised him to buy plenty of bandages and compresses, which surprised Nire. Back in the present, Nire conditioned himself not to close his eyes. He remembered Suwa's teaching to draw the opponent in until they're just about to make contact. Suddenly, Suwa shouted, "Now!" As the man was about to punch him, Nire suddenly dropped to his knees and ducked to avoid the hit. Sakura and Suwa looked over in surprise. Because of Nirei's move, the man tripped and fell face down to the ground. The woman warned Nirei to get up because another attacker was coming. The attacker was about to kick Nirei, but someone blocked it. It was Suwa, who apologized and said that Nirei was still in training. He grabbed the attacker's leg and pulled him down to the ground. Suwa reminded Nirei of his teaching not to close his eyes. Nevertheless, he praised him, saying what he did was amazing. Nirei was surprised by the compliment. Back to their training, Suwa said they would start by learning self-defense. He wanted to begin there. If he were the one teaching, Nirei would learn to defeat the enemy while protecting himself. Nirei was astonished and asked if it was possible to multitask like that. Suwa said all he needed to do was be like a pill bug. Nirei took notes, but Suwa told him to put them aside for now. He would show him what he meant. Suwa instructed Nirei to approach him as if he were going to punch him. Nirei was puzzled and said he couldn't do that. Suwa reassured him that it was fine. So, Nirei focused and suddenly ran towards Suwa. Suwa explained that when people punch, they usually target the face. So, if he suddenly bent down, he would disappear from the enemy's field of view. Next, the enemy wouldn't be able to quickly shift their attention from his face to his legs, causing them to lose the ability to handle the sudden change. As a result, they would fall forward. Suwa held his leg and warned him to be careful. Nirei was utterly astonished by what had happened. When they stood up, Nirei said that Suwa should have warned him. Suwa apologized and said it was better for him to experience it firsthand. Nirei said that if all he needed to do was turn into a ball, he thought he could pull it off. Suwa was pleased and said that was the spirit. However, there was a condition he had to be conscious of. Nirei asked what that was. Suddenly, Suwa ran toward Nirei and readied to punch, catching him off guard. Nirei flinched and closed his eyes in fear. Suwa told him he must never close his eyes, punctuating his point with a flick to Nirei's forehead. The first part of their training was his eyes. Nirei was nervous, wondering if he could handle it. Back in the present, Suwa was pleased because Nirei successfully applied what he had been taught. Suwa asked if he could continue, and Nirei replied yes. Meanwhile, Sakura was busy with his own opponents. When he glanced over earlier, he was happy to see that Nirei had dodged the enemy. Suddenly, two men attacked Sakura and asked why he was laughing. One of them was about to kick him, but Sakura ducked. As a result, the attacker ended up kicking his own companion instead of Sakura. Sakura said that if Nirei could do that, he should have mentioned it. Then, he suddenly punched the man in front of him hard, knocking him to the ground. Now, only their leader was left. Sakura ran towards him. The man dodged Sakura's punch, and Sakura did the same when the man punched back. The man laughed. However, when he tried to strike again, he didn't expect Sakura's spin kick, which landed on his face. Finally, Sakura knocked him down. All the men chasing the woman were now lying on the ground. The woman was amazed when she saw this and exclaimed in awe at their skill. Even though there were many enemies, Sakura and Suwa seemed to have no trouble handling them. Off to the side, the woman was worried about Nirei. He apologized, saying that when he finally calmed down, his legs suddenly gave out. They quickly approached them. Suwa told him that there's no need to apologize. He praised Nirei, saying he did well, considering it was his first fight. He then asked Sakura for his opinion. Sakura said he was sure that Suwa had taught Nirei that dangerous move. Suwa admitted it and called it the pill bug stance. Nirei said that Suwa's stance looked much cooler. He felt embarrassed, saying he must have looked pretty lame earlier. Sakura fell silent, reflecting on the events. He then said that he didn't think Nirei looked lame or anything like that. Nirei seemed pleased, while Sakura felt a bit embarrassed. Suddenly, Nirei asked who those men were, suggesting they seemed to be chasing her. Just as she was about to explain, a man arrived, surprising them all. He pushed Nirei and kicked Suwa and Sakura. Nirei looked at him while Suwa asked if Sakura was okay. When Sakura confirmed he was fine, he asked if the man was with the group from earlier. If so, his skill level was much higher than theirs. The woman tried to stop them, but the man just pulled her away. Suwa and Sakura prepared to attack. The man, furious, said they must be sniffing around for Shizuka. They paused upon hearing this. He said that Shizuka was going to work in that town, and it was final. Shizuka tried to stop him to make him listen. The man was shocked to see her injured. Shizuka told him to listen to her first. Enraged, he accused them of wounding her pearly skin and declared he would kill them. As he refused to listen, Shizuka suddenly slapped him and told him to listen first. The three of them were stunned by what she did. The man knelt before them and apologized. He didn't know that they had saved Shizuka. Such a mistake would have been worthy of harakiri hundreds of years ago. But now, maybe he could just cut off his finger. Sakura was shocked, and Nire said that was a bit exaggerated. Shizuka called his attention and reminded him not to jump to conclusions so quickly. Embarrassed, he admitted that Shizuka was right. She added that the other day, he suddenly ran when he heard a fire truck, and when the bar was apologizing for their mistake, he thought they wanted to fight. The man, still on his knees, apologized profusely to all of them. He explained that no matter how many times Shizuka told him, his body moved on its own before he could even wrap his head around the situation. He stood up and apologized again. Suwa replied that it was okay. At least the misunderstanding was cleared up. Nire suddenly asked who they were. The man scratched his head and introduced himself as Kanji Nakamura and the woman as Shizuka Narita. He explained that Shizuka was a singer and he works at the bar where she performs. Nire was astonished to learn that she was a singer. Suwa realized that this was why Shizuka was wearing such a dress. Kanji proudly boasted that Shizuka's voice was incredibly beautiful, like an angel every time she stepped on stage. Shizuka was embarrassed by the compliment. She said Kanji always saved her, and she was very thankful to him for that. Kanji blushed and said she didn't need to be thankful. Nire remarked that they seemed to be good friends. However, Sakura commented that it looked like they were more than just good friends, and such incidents were happening more frequently lately. Kanji asked why Sakura was blushing, which annoyed Sakura. Suddenly, Sakura noticed someone on the ground who seemed about to attack again. He quickly pulled Kanji and Shizuka aside, preparing to defend them. Kanji looked to see why Sakura had done that and realized someone was attacking from behind. As the two were about to clash, a person in a suit suddenly intervened. Everyone was shocked by the newcomer's powerful kick that sent the attacker flying. Sakura was stunned by the strength of the kick. The person in the suit had several companions and commented that he's always such a handful. They mentioned that they had saved his ass several times this month alone. What's worse is, he's all smiles and blushes, saying he needed to pay more attention. This was why he had almost been taken down by a small fry. Kanji scratched his head, realizing he was the one being addressed. He admitted they were right and apologized, acknowledging that he should have been more careful. Nire couldn't believe even more people had arrived. But Shizuka reassured him, saying it was okay because they were their companions. The formally dressed men seemed to be more mature colleagues of theirs. They hoped that the thugs they had beaten and the guys they had seen on their way there would be the last ones. Kanji clarified that he wasn't the one who had beaten them. He pointed to Sakura and said that they were the ones who did it. The man was surprised and immediately bowed to apologize. He said they didn't know them but hoped their chairman hadn't caused any trouble for them. They were shocked to learn that Kanji was the chairman. He clarified that they were well known in that town and that people called them Roppo-Ichiza. Kanji adjusted his tie, which had the group's badge, and said he was the chairman of that organization. The Furin members, especially Nire, couldn't believe it. Nire shouted, "Roppo-Ichiza," which annoyed Sakura because of the sudden outburst. But he explained that he knew who they were. Nire explained that Furin had fought Roppo-Ichiza many times before they became united. Roppo-Ichiza was a major team that only knows how to solve their problems with their fists. Kanji's expression suddenly became serious upon hearing the name Furin. Nire quickly covered his mouth, realizing he hadn't heard about any fights between the two teams for a while, and that's why he mentioned it so casually. Kanji held his head for a moment, then laughed upon realizing they were members of Furin. No wonder they were so strong, he said. They hadn't expected his reaction. Kanji pointed to Sakura and said that he had tried to protect Shizuka and him even though they were strangers to him. He remarked that Sakura wasn't just physically strong but had a heart too. He said he liked Sakura, causing him to blush. Sakura replied that he didn't try to protect them. They were just in the way when he was about to punch the man. Kanji laughed and said Sakura should give himself some credit and stop being so modest. Shizuka then joined the conversation, saying that if they were from Furin, they probably knew Tsubakino. They were surprised to hear that. Nire asked if she knew him. They were supposed to meet him there, which is why they ended up in that place. She responded that of course she knew him. They had performed together on the same stage at their bar. They hadn't expected that and asked what stage she meant. We then see the show Pub Ugi, located in the red light district. They were shocked when they entered and saw Tsubakino performing on stage. He was dancing on a pole to the music, and the audience was cheering enthusiastically. When he saw them, he winked at them. Suwa and Nire were impressed, while Sakura couldn't believe what he was seeing. After the performance, Tsubakino treated them to a meal as a thank you for helping the old man, Ito, get his spirits back. He raised a toast while Sakura was busy eating, so Nire told him to cheers first before eating. Tsubakino said it was fine, and they should just eat up. Sakura continued eating non-stop, prompting Tsubakino to comment on how delicious the food was and to eat as much as they wanted since it was on him. Nire asked if Sakura wasn't worried about being in an adult bar and noted that Suwa seemed quite used to it. Tsubakino shared that since their visit, the old man Ito had become much more lively, which he found hard to believe. Ito now dressed nicely and went out every day to watch movies or plays. He said he wanted to gather many stories to share when he reunited with his wife. Nire knocked on wood at that. Tsubakino added that the reason for Ito's change was them, so he was very thankful. The three didn't expect that. Nire said they didn't do much, and Sakura agreed. Suwa also enjoyed talking to him, which touched Tsubakino. Because of this, Tsubakino ordered fruits. He insisted they each get a plate of fruits. Suwa appreciated Tsubakino's generosity, while Nire felt embarrassed and said it wasn't necessary. The Sasaki twins, who were celebrating in the back, requested an extra food plate. The three were surprised to see the twins there. Seiryu waved at them and said they finally noticed them, thanking them for the free meal. Tsubakino wondered what the plates were doing on their table. So, he decided to cancel the fruit order. Seiryu commented that he was really looking forward to dessert and asked if they could at least have a cake set. Tsubakino, irritated, said there would be no cake for them either. Seiryu called him cheap, but Tsubakino clarified that they should be considerate. Nire said they were already grateful for the meal they had. However, he praised Tsubakino, saying his dancing earlier was super duper cool. They were already happy to have seen such a cool performance, and Sakura agreed. Tsubakino blushed with delight upon hearing that. Nire took out his notebook and said he didn't expect Tsubakino to have such a talent and to perform there. He started asking Tsubakino many questions, like when he started dancing and what kind of dance it was. Tsubakino happily explained that it was pole dancing. He had watched videos online and enjoyed it. He thought that if he was going to do it, he wanted to perform on a stage where people could watch him. But there were no bars like that near Furin, so he went to Keisei Street. He went straight to the manager to ask if he could dance there. They were surprised by his assertiveness. Tsubakino agreed, saying he wanted to do whatever he desired and decided to do everything to make it possible. Kanji, bringing more food to their table, said he remembered the manager's face when Tsubakino asked. It seemed like he wouldn't leave until the manager said yes. He looked like he was about to cry back then. Tsubakino responded that the manager lets him on stage all the time now, so it's okay. While Sakura was still busy eating, Nire noticed the closeness between Kanji and Tsubakino. Suddenly, Tsubakino asked Kaji if it was true that he and the first years stopped some drunkard's fight. The three of them were silent, and Kaji thought for a moment before saying it was true. He said they saved him. Kanji admitted he wouldn't have had any idea what to do if the three hadn't shown up earlier. Tsubakino then told Kanji that since he was the guardian of that street, he should get his act together. They were surprised and asked what he meant by guardian. Tsubakino clarified that the street was full of alcohol and arts, so fights frequently occurred. Kanji's job was to stop them and act as a bodyguard for the girls. Eventually, the workers on that street shared the same sentiment and gathered together, calling themselves Roppo-Ichiza. Suwa commented that it wasn't a usual team, while Nire said it's just like Furin. However, Kanji replied that Furin was different. They were just trying to repeatedly repair a leaky roof. The three of them pondered what he meant. Kanji explained that when they tried to clean out troublemakers on their own, it attracted more people like them. But in Furin, they have Umemiya. To stop the leak entirely, he rebuilt the entire house. Umemiya was really something else, Kanji said. Tsubakino blushed and said he understood Umemiya. Seiryu asked why Tsubakino was blushing. The chairman of Roppo-Ichiza had said so many good things that it made Nire very happy. Even Suwa was getting really happy about it. Kanji added, "The bigger your action, the bigger the reaction is." He smiled and said he hoped nothing else would happen. Tsubakino punched Kanji in the side and told him to mind his own business. Kanji said it hurt, asking if Tsubakino didn't know his own strength. Tsubakino replied that his fists were made of fluffy marshmallows, so it shouldn't hurt. Kanji clarified that he didn't mean it in a grim way. He commented on how well the underlings of Furin were raised. Tsubakino and the Sakaki twins were surprised by his comment. Seiryu said it seemed like Kanji liked them. He warned Kanji not to steal their first years. Kanji replied by asking how about the twins themselves. Did they want to come over to them? But he added that the younger one might have problems working with their clients. Suddenly, Shizuka appeared on stage, surprising everyone. She had changed and prepared to perform again. Nire was astonished and wondered where Shizuka had gone. He hadn't expected her to suddenly appear there. Kanji hushed them, saying that Shizuka was about to start singing. Tsubakino commented that Kanji was the loudest one there. As Shizuka began singing, she seemed to captivate the audience with her voice. Nire and Suwa were impressed, and Suwa remarked on how beautiful Shizuka's voice was. Tsubakino felt like his soul was being healed by her sound. Kanji, proud, said it only took 3 months for them to rise up and become number one because of her. After the performance, everyone applauded, and Kanji blushed as Tsubakino told him to get back to work. Shizuka approached their table, and Tsubakino was very excited. He noticed that her hands were covered in band-aids and asked what had happened. Shizuka replied that it was nothing. She had just tripped. Kanji thanked them for keeping their little secret from Tsubakino. The three remained silent. Flashback to before they entered the club, Kanji had asked them not to tell Tsubakino what had happened to Shizuka. Because of the small age gap, Shizuka thought of Tsubakino as an older sibling. In turn, Tsubakino spoiled Shizuka like a younger sister. If Tsubakino found out that Shizuka had been in trouble, he would surely snap so hard. Kanji suddenly asked if they had ever seen Tsubakino snap. Moreover, they couldn't drag Furin into the street's problems. They were puzzled by this. Just then, someone rushed up the stairs looking for Kanji, shouting that there was a problem. Some people they had never seen before were causing a disturbance in the street. Everyone was shocked by this news. Kanji asked what the man meant. The man replied that they hadn't seen those men before, but now they were causing trouble, kicking street signs, and forming a mob on the streets. Tsubakino was shocked and asked why this was happening. The man added that they seemed to be associates of the men they had fought earlier. Everyone, especially Kanji, was surprised. However, Kanji just took off his apron and said he would handle it. Tsubakino asked if this had anything to do with Sakura and the others helping to stop the drunks. He called for the twins, saying they would go too. Kanji stopped them, telling them to stay there with Shizuka. They hadn't expected that. Kanji thanked them for their concern, but since it seemed like there were many of them, he couldn't guarantee the bar's safety. So, he asked Tsubakino to stay with Shizuka. He knew it wasn't right to ask for help from the commander of another team, but he bowed and pleaded. The members of Furin fell silent, even Sakura, who suddenly stood up, surprising Nire. Suwa signaled to Nire, worrying Kanji. He told the first years to stop and stay there, saying it was their problem. Sakura replied that if these men were like the ones they had fought earlier, It didn't matter what their reasons were because he was one of the people who beat them up. The three stood up and said they were already involved. Kanji was shocked, and Tsubakino intervened. He said he didn't know what they were hiding from him, but if they were going to join, they should do it right. He told Kanji to ensure the first years returned safely. Kanji nodded and thanked him. They ran outside in a hurry. Shizuka, left behind in the bar, was nervous. As they ran, Kanji thanked them for coming along, calling them good kids. Sakura clarified that they were involved, blushing and saying he wasn't doing it for him. Kanji grinned, patted his head, and said he knew Sakura had the heart of a true man. Sakura was surprised by this. Kanji said he expected nothing less from a Furin boy. Sakura complained that Kanji's patting hurt, making Suwa and Nire laugh. Nire remarked that he had heard Roppo-Ichiza didn't have many members. If there were many enemies, he should have asked for the help of the Sakaki twins and others. Kanji reassured them, saying they would be fine. Roppo-Ichiza was stronger than they seemed. Nire was shocked to see their opponents. Kanji's companion pointed out where the troublemakers were. There were more of them than before, surprising Suwa and Nire. When they arrived, the other members of Roppo-Ichiza were already fighting. Kanji confirmed that while they had fewer members than Furin, each member of Roppo-Ichiza could fight many. Despite being outnumbered, they managed to hold their ground, showcasing their strength. Roppo-Ichiza made up for their small numbers with the best of the best. Their strong physiques and excellent fighting skills impressed Nire. Sakura was also amazed, especially by the man in the striped suit with long hair, who was agile and powerful. As he fought, the long-haired man grumbled about having to send his suit to the cleaners again. Another strong fighter, a man with a buzz cut, grabbed an opponent by the belt and lifted him to slam him down. He mocked the opponent, asking what does he think he can do being that light. He should come back after eating properly. Another impressive man in a checkered suit managed to take down numerous opponents. He was incredibly fast, using various kicking styles to bring down his foes one after another. Sakura noticed that those three were on a different level from everyone else. The man in stripes was irritated by the endless stream of enemies. Just then, Kanji arrived and apologized for being late. The long-haired guy was surprised to see Sakura and the others with him. Kanji explained that they wanted to help. The enemy, surprised, said he expected them to get back up, but only 4 people showed up, despite the large mob they still had. Nire asked who those men were, noting that they didn't seem to care about their beat-up friends. Suwa found them creepy. The other group demanded they hand over Shizuka, or they would wreak havoc on the entire street. Someone asked how many there were. Suddenly, Kanji ran and charged at them, surprising Sakura and the others. The long-haired guy reassured them not to worry about Kanji, saying he always did that. Their chairman was always impatient. The guys laughed, seeing him charge alone. Kanji's aura changed, and he delivered a powerful gut punch to the enemy, shocking everyone. He continued his relentless attacks, telling the enemies to stop boasting about things they couldn't even achieve. Nire was stunned by this. Sakura realized he had felt this kind of presence before with their own leader. Kanji declared that no matter what challenges came, as long as he was alive, he wouldn't let them ruin this street. Kanji was intense, and in his anger, he relentlessly punched his opponent. His punches were so powerful that one of his guys was sent flying. Someone saw an opening and charged at him from behind, but Kanji dodged, grabbed the attacker's right hand, and threw him to the ground, followed by a powerful kick. He sent the attacker flying back into his own group. Every member of Roppo-Ichiza was now engaged in the battle. Suwa commented on how fierce Kanji was. Sakura thought that Kanji was better than the average guy in both power and reaction speed. He realized that Kanji had held back earlier when he didn't know they had saved Shizuka. Sakura smiled, recognizing that Kanji Nakamura was indeed the chairman of Roppo-Ichiza. Kanji was attacked simultaneously from the front and the back. He wondered what to do, and as he kicked the one behind him, he was surprised to see that someone had already dealt with the one in front. It was Sakura who had punched the other attacker. Kanji laughed and said that Sakura had saved him again. Sakura replied that he could have handled it, but he wouldn't let Kanji show off all by himself. Kanji smiled in response. Meanwhile, the man who had fought Sakura earlier was confident he would take him down this time. However, when he punched, Sakura dodged and struck him back. His comrades caught him. They were grinning when someone suddenly said, "Lend me your back?" As Sakura looked, Kanji ran up and used his shoulder as a stepping stone to deliver a powerful kick, knocking the man down right in front of his group. Kanji looked at Sakura and said that was repayment for helping him earlier. Sakura, irritated, prepared to attack and said, "Mind your own business." The long-haired guy noticed Sakura's skill, commenting that he could even keep up with Kanji. Suwa explained that Sakura was the grade captain of their class. Suddenly, two enemies approached, and they looked at each other before running and preparing to kick their opponents. They smiled at each other, pleased with their synchronized move. Suwa received praise, but replied that he still had a lot to improve. The long-haired guy commented on Suwa's words, saying that Furin definitely had a bright future. Noticing Nire on the sidelines, he asked if he would be okay, seeing the fear in his eyes. Suwa told him not to worry, saying that while Nire might not be able to do much now, his desire to become stronger was greater than most. On the sidelines, Nire wondered what he could do to help. He remembered his earlier conversation with Suwa, who had said that it was more important to stay on his feet than to think about bringing someone else down. So, Nire decided he wouldn't join the fight and would think of something else to contribute. Although it was frustrating, he couldn't use what Suwa had taught him due to the overwhelming number of enemies. He felt sad because he couldn't do anything. Suwa acknowledged that it was indeed frustrating to feel helpless in such a situation, but emphasized the importance of seeing oneself objectively. He assured Nire that he would be able to fight one day, since Suwa is his teacher. As Nire watched Suwa take down the opponents, he wondered if he could become that strong one day. More importantly, they were able to overwhelm them despite the enemy's numbers. Suddenly, a man arrived and asked what was happening. He said that many men had shown up earlier but were stopped at the entrance. He suggested they just let the woman be taken so they could get their money and grill some meat to eat. The members of Roppo-Ichiza couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 3 Furin members and the 3 strong fighters from Roppo-Ichiza became serious. Kanji's face showed clear irritation as more enemies arrived. He wondered how many of them are there. The man with a man bun laughed and said the men in suits were blocking their way. So these were the Roppo-Ichiza they had heard about. He was shocked to see how many they had already taken down. He remarked that they didn't seem to be that numerous and joked that wearing suits might be what made them strong. Sakura, Suwa, and Nire were left wondering. The man commented that they all seemed to be around the same age. Jokingly, he suggested to his comrades that maybe they would become stronger if they wore suits too. They laughed and agreed, saying they should try it and maybe steal some suits, as they did with other things. On the side, Nire thought about what was happening. This wasn't the time for them to be chatting among themselves. Kanji, irritated, said they had brought a crowd just because they had knocked down a few of their comrades. He told them to learn to buzz off. The man with the man bun explained that the guys they had fought earlier weren't with them, which surprised Sakura and the others. Kanji asked for clarification. The man explained that because of the incompetence of those guys, they got the job now. He introduced their group as Gravel from the Sanaba district. The man waved and said, "Nice to meet you." Nire was shocked to hear they were Gravel from the Sanaba district. Sakura, noticing Nire's reaction, asked if he knew them. Nire replied that Sanaba was known for being a seedy place with a bad reputation. Sakura remarked that it sounded like the old Furin. Nire disagreed, surprising Sakura. He explained that it wasn't just seedy because of the violence and fights. The economy in that area was terrible, leading to a lot of burglary and various other crimes. People in the Sanaba district didn't attend school or work. According to what he had heard, mercenaries and subcontractors from other teams had come together to make money, forming the group Gravel. Seeing the man with the man bun gave him a strange feeling. The man from Gravel had been told they could get money if they brought Shizuka, and since they group earlier screwed up, their reward had increased. With that money, they could eat delicious grilled meat. So, he asked if they could just hand over Shizuka Narita to them. The Furin members couldn't believe what they were hearing. The man from Gravel added that they didn't come to fight. If they could just hand over the woman, they would leave immediately. Besides, it was clear they were exhausted after fighting the group earlier. Even though they were strong, it was impossible for them to win against such numbers. So, they should just hand over the woman to avoid ending up face down on the ground. It would be a win-win situation for everyone. It was clear that Roppo-Ichiza wouldn't be easily swayed. Sakura thought that besides not caring about those they had fought earlier, more people like them kept coming. It would be easy if it were a one-on-one fight, but battling such a large group wouldn't be that simple. He wondered what their options were to win. Sakura was surprised to hear that it didn't matter if they didn't win. It was Kanji who said he's got the wrong idea. He explained that Roppo-Ichiza's job was to ensure people can entertain and be entertained without fear. So, as long as they could maintain that, winning or losing didn't matter. Sakura couldn't believe what he was hearing. What did Kanji mean? Weren't they fighting to win? There was no point in fighting if they were going to lose. Kanji added that even if they ended up getting beaten and lying on the ground, as long as the street and Shizuka were safe, that was all that mattered to them. The Furin members were shocked by this statement. Sakura thought that he had never considered there could be fights where the outcome didn't matter. They were fighting just to protect. He remembered what Umamimiya had said, that he became the top because he had something he wanted to accomplish. At the top, everyone was the same. The man from Gravel said he had no idea what Kanji was talking about. Moreover, if they could beat every one of them, it meant they lost. In that case, they could take the woman. Kanji asked about this. The man mentioned. Did they think many of them would be left standing? Kanji laughed and said he might be the only one left. He added that they left Shizuka with some pretty scary bodyguards. The man from Gravel asked if that meant they wouldn't run and would choose to fight instead. Kanji agreed. The man said it would be boring without a boss fight if they were to get a shiny prize item. Kanji was annoyed, and Nire trembled with fear. Kanji said it was disrespectful to treat their star singer like an object. He prepared himself, and the Gravel members showed signs of nervousness. The man with the man bun told them to forget about it and get straight to it. Kanji said enough with the talking. They should make sure they were ready because they would fight to the bitter end. He warned them they would regret messing with someone from that street. Kanji signaled to Roppo-Ichiza that it was time to lift the curtain for a total bloodbath. Back at Show Pub Ugi, it was evident that Shizuka was worried about the situation. Yuryu was wearing a mask, making Tsubakino and his twin brother laugh. Tsubakino said it suited him well. Seiryu added that he should go to school in that. They asked Shizuka what she thought about it, and if the look was okay. Shizuka, clearly distracted, replied that it looked okay, adding that Tsubakino's current outfit, especially the bow tie, suited him very well. They were puzzled by her response. Shizuka apologized and asked what they were talking about again. They replied that it was Yuryu's new look. Tsubakino, excited, said he also liked the bow tie, leaving the twins speechless. Seiryu noted that Shizuka was definitely worried because Kanji had left to join the fight, but he reassured her that Kanji wasn't easy to defeat, and she knows that too, so she don't have to look so gloomy. Shizuka agreed, saying he was right. She then excused herself to go to the restroom, and Tsubakino agreed. Once Shizuka left, they saw it as a chance to try on more funny costumes. Seiryu couldn't believe it. He asked if Shizuka always reacted like this whenever Kanji fought, considering he fought almost every day. He also noted that they looked different when they left and wondered if the fight had anything to do with Shizuka. Tsubakino asked, "So what if that's true? Even if Shizuka is involved, you can't deny she's a good girl who's great at singing. Besides, every girl has one or two little secrets." Seiryu agreed. They noticed that Shizuka was taking a long time in the restroom, which made Tsubakino nervous. He wondered if she had run out to follow Kanji. Out in the streets, the battle between Gravel and Roppo-Ichiza continued. The man with the man bun from Gravel noted that it looked like a boss battle, as many of their opponents were already down. He was impressed. The attacks on his comrades were relentless, especially from Kanji. The man noticed that Kanji's movements were different and that he's acting a bit strange. Some members of Roppo-Ichiza looked like they were out of HP while fighting. Even though they were punching, their attacks were getting weaker. A man from Roppo-Ichiza was shocked by this observation. Bloodied members of Gravel on the ground grabbed him, giving their comrade a chance to land a blow. The Gravel member laughed, finally having an opportunity to take him down. However, he was suddenly kicked in the face and fell to the ground. It was Sakura who told him to move it. The Roppo-Ichiza man apologized. Sakura saw other Gravel members ganging up on another Roppo-Ichiza member. Angrily, he ran to help, punching one of the attackers. Sakura thought about how impressed he was by Kanji's statement that as long as they protected the streets, winning or losing didn't matter. But he didn't fully understand it. Losing meant all their comrades would get beaten up. As he separated the two, Suwa called out to him, warning him of another attacker approaching. However, Kanji took the attacker down. His intense expression shocked Sakura. In his fury, Kanji didn't realize Sakura was in front of him and almost punched him. But another member of Roppo-Ichiza called out to him, causing him to stop. He apologized to Sakura, realizing he had almost hit his comrade. Sakura couldn't believe it. Kanji asked if he could still fight, to which Sakura responded affirmatively. In that case, Kanji ordered them to return to the bar. Suwa and Sakura were surprised by this. Why was he saying that now? Kanji explained that he had promised Tsubakino he would bring them back safe and sound. The long-haired guy agreed, saying they were their guests. It wouldn't be right for them to fight for them. The man with the buzz cut invited them to visit their shop, promising to feed them. Another said he would play a piano performance for them. Annoyed, Sakura asked if they were joking. He insisted that this fight was his too. Kanji apologized for relying on them. They were truly grateful, but if he couldn't fulfill his promise to keep them safe, he wouldn't be able to bear it. So he had one last request. He asked them to let Roppo-Ichiza be the stars of this show. Sakura couldn't accept this, unable to respond. So, they turned around to leave. The long-haired guy signaled Suwa, who then told Sakura they needed to go to a safe place with Shizuka. Meanwhile, the man with the man bun from Gravel was pleased, saying he finally saw the commander of Roppo-Ichiza and that the elimination was near. Kanji shouted, "Go!" prompting Suwa to quickly pull Sakura along, surprising him. Sakura wanted Suwa to let go, but Suwa insisted they needed to protect Shizuka no matter what. Looking back, Sakura wondered if that was their only choice and lamented that he wished he were stronger. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Stop!" catching everyone's attention, including Sakura and the Roppo-Ichiza members. Kanji was shocked to see that it was Shizuka, out of breath from running. Shizuka pleaded with them to stop the fighting. The Furin members were surprised she came there, and the Roppo-Ichiza members were even more shocked to see her. The leader of Gravel took something out of his pocket. It was a picture. He realized that she was the Shizuka Narita they were looking for. He was surprised that she showed herself voluntarily. Did this mean they had beaten the game? Kanji was annoyed and asked why she came. He told her to go back, but she said she would go with them. Sakura couldn't believe it. Kanji asked what she was saying. Shizuka replied that if she went with them, the fighting would stop. Suddenly, someone stepped in front of her to block her. Nire. Sakura and Suwa were surprised. Nire said she couldn't go with them. He knew he was powerless and frustrated because of it. He couldn't do anything, but his feelings couldn't compare to how much the members of Roppo-Ichiza wanted to protect her. When he watched Kanji and his team fight, he understood, and it hurt. If she went with them now, then Kanji and his group's feelings and pain would be in vain. So, he said he wouldn't let her go with them. Shizuka started crying, but she understood that their care for her and her gratitude were as strong as their desire to protect her. She recalled that when she first ended up on that street, she was lost and didn't know what to do. No one asked her questions or interfered with her struggles. They simply accepted her there. Kanji had asked her if there was something she wanted to do, and she answered that she wanted to sing. He encouraged her to give singing a try. She replied that she wasn't good enough to perform in front of anyone, but he convinced her to give it a try. Despite her shyness, Shizuka sang in front of him. Afterward, she apologized, saying she was still a beginner, but Kanji praised her, saying she was amazing. He invited her to sing on their stage and promised to convince their boss. Shizuka was stunned by his words. Because of that, her life in that place felt like a dream. She was surrounded by incredible people. More than anything, she fell in love for the first time and received immense happiness there. That's why she couldn't bear the thought of anyone getting hurt because of her. She pleaded to be allowed to leave. Nire was deep in thought because of what she said, and Kanji couldn't believe it. But suddenly, the man from Gravel laughed, which angered Kanji. He demanded to know what was so funny. The man explained that this is all crazy, dreams and love. He said they are not giving her a choice. Sakura and the others were puzzled by his words. The man pointed at her and said that Shizuka came from their place too. They didn't expect that. Nire thought, does he mean from Tsunoba district? The man added that she had no family. Based on what he had heard, she only survived by working as a cleaner. While living a directionless life, an old man tried to buy her, but shockingly, she ran away. The Gravel members said that people like them couldn't talk about love and dreams. Otherwise, they would end up involving others in their troubles. In the end, their happiness would be destroyed. He told her to look around. This was their reality. Suddenly, Kanji tried to punch him, but the man dodged. Kanji shouted to Shizuka not to listen to him and to go back to the bar. The man said there was no need to beat them all up. They just needed to hold him down. So, they surrounded Kanji. The man called out to Shizuka, asking if she saw what was happening. If she went with them, the trouble would end. Hearing this, Shizuka suddenly broke free from Nire, Suwa, and Sakura and ran. The Gravel members quickly chased after her, but Sakura told Suwa to get her and run. Suwa agreed. In Shizuka's mind, she thought it was okay. She would be fine. She had already done what she wanted to do. She had fallen in love. Having those memories was enough. She could live with those memories. While the members of Roppo-Ichiza were fighting, they couldn't help but keep an eye on Shizuka. Suwa and Nire also ran quickly to get her. Kanji shouted at Sakura to stop her. He ran quickly, but just then, the twins arrived and caught Shizuka. Sakura was surprised to see that it was the Sakaki twins. Shizuka couldn't believe it when she heard Tsubakino's voice. She suddenly disappeared and worried them. She tearfully told them not to come closer because she shouldn't be there. Tsubakino listened to what she had to say. Shizuka added that if she went with them, no one else would get hurt. But Tsubakino asked her what she wanted. Shizuka couldn't help but cry at that question and admitted that she wanted to stay with them all. She sobbed. So Tsubakino approached her and comforted her, saying he felt the same way. She calmed Shizuka down and told her that she should go back to a place where she would be safe. Shizuka couldn't respond and continued to cry. She apologized, saying she dragged everyone into this. Tsubakino replied that she shouldn't be so formal. He was doing it for his cute younger sister and told her not to think too much about it. He added that he didn't know who those men were, but they suddenly appeared out of nowhere. A Gravel member commented that it was mean. He also said that after Shizuka woke up to love and dreams crap, did he want her to live a life that didn't suit her? So, their quest had changed. They would defeat all of them before moving on. Shizuka was worried while Tsubakino just laughed. The Gravel member asked what was so funny. He questioned his statement that the life didn't suit Shizuka. He thought he was just jealous of her. Everyone was surprised by what he said, and the Gravel member couldn't believe it. Tsubakino explained that people who try to stop someone's passion are those with their own problems or struggles. The Gravel member didn't understand and scratched his head. He said he was probably hungry and dizzy to think about what Tsubakino was saying. He didn't know what they thought they could do, especially since only 3 more had joined their side. He was getting bored and wanted to end it. He told his group that the money bags were right in front of them, so they should get serious and crush them. They surrounded the Roppo-Ichiza members, who fought with all their might despite being outnumbered by Gravel. Sakura was about to charge, but someone called out to him, Suwa and Nire. Tsubakino told them to take care of Shizuka. Sakura couldn't believe it because he felt he should be in the fight. Tsubakino explained that the whole point of the fight was to protect Shizuka. Therefore, he wanted to leave Shizuka in their care. He reminded them of how they had already shown their abilities when they helped Old Man Ito, pleading with Sakura repeatedly. Sakura thought back to his earlier wish of being stronger. He couldn't accept that the most important person in this fight was being entrusted to him. Remembering past events, he realized that this was what he needed to do now. So, he accepted the responsibility. Nire promised to do his best, and Suwa reassured them that they would protect her. The twins were silent while Tsubakino thanked them. Sakura asked Tsubakino if he would be fighting since he was one of the four kings. Tsubakino was pleased by Sakura's concern. He replied that, although it might not seem like it, he was itching to fight. Or perhaps, he should be careful not to overdo it. Tsubakino told Kanji and all the members of Roppo-Ichiza to focus only on the enemies in front of them. He claimed the man-bun boy as his own target. They smiled at his confidence. Kanji shouted that they had poked the bear, angering the scariest person there, which surprised the Gravel members. As the Gravel members charged, Tsubakino directed Seiryu and Yuryu to clear a path for him, since he wanted to fight the guy. They then prepared for the fight. The Gravel members attacked with fury, while the twins exchanged glances, seemingly having a pre-planned move. The first years were impressed. Seiryu assisted Yuryu in jumping incredibly high, kicking an enemy behind them. Seiryu reminded him not to get distracted. The other Gravel members were stunned as Yuryu appeared behind them, delivering more kicks. Seiryu laughed, repeating the warning not to get distracted. When Yuryu noticed another approaching enemy, Seiryu jumped on his back to deliver a powerful kick. The first years and Shizuka were amazed. Suwa noted their incredible synchronization. Shizuka was worried when she saw someone charging at Tsubakino and shouted a warning. Tsubakino, unfazed, asked if the attacker wanted to dance. He caught the attacker's fist, spun him around, and then released him, delivering a kick to the stomach with his high heels. The attacker was clearly hurt, flying far away. Tsubakino apologized, saying his dance card was full. He then faced the man from Gravel and asked what kind of music he preferred. While Yuryu and Seiryu were making their way through the mob, Tsubakino fiercely walked to face the leader of Gravel. Nire, Sakura, and Suwa stood on the sidelines, watching over Shizuka and observing the battle between Roppo-Ichiza and Gravel. It was clear from the fight that Roppo-Ichiza was still giving their best. Shizuka saw them and felt extremely worried and guilty, thinking it was her fault. Sakura noticed Shizuka's concern and asked if she was thinking nonsense like wishing she had never been born. Nire tried to stop Sakura, but he continued, reminding Shizuka that she had said she wanted to be with them and that was what Roppo-Ichiza was fighting for. Shizuka was surprised and realized that what Sakura said was true. Sakura told Shizuka to swallow her feelings of helplessness and frustration while watching Roppo-Ichiza put themselves in danger for her. With a serious face and a frown, Sakura promised that they would not allow anyone to hurt Shizuka. Convinced, Shizuka, despite being scared, agreed with Sakura. Nire's face was serious and determined when he heard them, while Suwa smiled. Suwa was amazed that the Gravel members couldn't get close because they were being defended by one of the four kings of Furin and his advisors. While fighting their own battles, Yuryu and Seiryu glanced at each other as if they were communicating telepathically. Yuryu ran towards Seiryu, who shouted, "Ready!" and held out his hand. Yuryu grasped Seiryu's hand tightly, and they executed their powerful move, a strong kick using both of Yuryu's feet with Seiryu's support. They took down many enemies with one hit. After releasing their grip, they immediately scanned the area and saw that no one was left, so they ran to the other side. While running, Seiryu noticed someone chasing Yuryu, so he got Yuryu's attention and stopped him. When Yuryu stopped, Seiryu slid under him with Yuryu's support and delivered a strong kick to the pursuer. Their fight showcased their deep understanding of each other as twins, almost like using twin telepathy as a weapon. After the kick, Yuryu smoothly helped Seiryu to stand up. The pursuer was about to get up, but was surprised to see Yuryu standing in front of him, delivering a powerful stomp to his back. Standing together, Seiryu told Yuryu that he had heard they had many opponents and that they had struggled a bit, but their enemies were decreasing as most of them were now unconscious. Tsubakino arrived and responded that it was expected since they were fighting Roppo-Ichiza, and while pointing to Suwa, Sakura, and Nire, he said that the men from Furin had also made an effort. The leader of Gravel had no comment and just watched while cracking his knuckles. The remaining Gravel members all charged towards Tsubakino and the twins. The Gravel's attention was called from another direction, saying they should fight them instead. Kanji delivered a powerful kick, and the fight resumed. The leaders and members of Roppo-Ichiza were visibly furious and still strong after taking down many enemies. While this was happening, the leader of Gravel stood still, cracking his knuckles so tightly that his fingers started bleeding. Tsubakino complimented Kanji, saying he had monstrous strength like always. Kanji replied that he still wasn't as strong as Tsubakino. Seiryu said they were only a few steps away from facing the boss of Gravel, but were shocked when he suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, the leader was in front of them, and they were all surprised. The leader was about to punch in Tsubakino's direction, causing Kanji to shout. The leader showed no reaction when his fist landed, but was surprised when Tsubakino spoke. Tsubakino had caught the punch and said he was happy because the leader wanted to play. Tsubakino tightened his grip on the leader's fist, saying it was time to dance and the leader would lead. The leader tried to punch with his other hand since Tsubakino was holding the other. Tsubakino's knee was about to strike, but the leader stopped it. The Gravel leader freed his right hand and quickly threw a punch, but Tsubakino dodged it by doing a split. The leader attempted to kick Tsubakino, but he blocked it with his hands. As Tsubakino stood up, the Gravel leader quickly kicked him again, but Tsubakino blocked it with his right hand, then immediately prepared a counterattack with a spinning backhand. However, the leader read the move and blocked it. The leader then tried to kick Tsubakino high with his other foot, but Tsubakino blocked it again, stepping back from the impact. Tsubakino retaliated with a powerful left kick, which, although blocked by the leader, sent him flying far. Kanji watched in shock, speechless. Yuryu gave Seiryu a meaningful look, and Seiryu responded that the leader was indeed strong and skilled, as he could keep up with Tsubakino. With blood dripping from his hand, the leader said they had struggled in this fight despite outnumbering Roppo-Ichiza because Roppo-Ichiza had better lives, ate well, and took care of themselves better than Gravel. Tsubakino listened intently as the leader said he would play with Tsubakino. Extending his hand as if asking for something, the leader added his condition. Tsubakino must give him all the money he had. Many of the fighters paused for a moment as all the attention of the people was on the exhilarating battle between the leader of Gravel and Tsubakino. However, no matter how many kicks or punches they exchanged, they either evaded, blocked, or caught each other's attacks. Their duel quickly turned into a contest of strength. The brawl between Gravel and Roppo-Ichiza continued while Sakura, Suwa, and Nire stood aside, guarding Shizuka and admiring Tsubakino's strength. But Sakura was merely holding back his anger and was really hot-headed towards the leader of Gravel, whose identity they still didn't know. Meanwhile, Yuryu pointed out something in the distance to Seiryu, and when Seiryu looked, he saw that the Gravel team members were just standing in the back, watching the fight with creepy smiles. While Seiryu was punching an attacker who charged at him, he remarked that just like them, those guys were overly confident in their boss's strength. Seiryu also knew that if they tried to get close to help Tsubakino, they would quickly be beaten and driven away. So he told Yuryu to join him in going to another area where there was also a fight so they could help there. Tsubakino delivered another powerful right kick to the leader of Gravel, which was still successfully blocked. The leader countered with a right punch that didn't quite break through Tsubakino's defense, so he spoke up, saying he hadn't expected such a tough fight and that it wasn't going to be easy money. Tsubakino responded that they would never allow them to earn even a small amount of money at the expense of a woman's suffering. As he said this, Tsubakino delivered an extremely strong upward right kick that sent the leader flying, even though he managed to block it. The leader of Gravel began to get angry and charged at Tsubakino, saying he didn't care about what Tsubakino was saying. He threw a flurry of punches, but Tsubakino dodged them all with pole dance-like moves. After creating some distance with a backflip, the leader of Gravel said that Shizuka was to blame for all of this because she wasn't in the right place to talk about love and dreams. Then, suddenly, the leader of Gravel charged in a zigzag pattern at incredible speed, creating two mirages due to his fast movements, surprising Tsubakino. As he said that Shizuka would get what she deserved, for the first time in their duel, his punch connected with Tsubakino's cheek. Shizuka screamed in worry for Tsubakino, who took the punch well. While knocking out some goons, Seiryu, Yuryu, and Kanji couldn't believe that the leader of Gravel had managed to punch Tsubakino in the cheek. Looking at his fist, the leader of Gravel noticed that it was sparkling because of the thick makeup it had picked up from Tsubakino's face. The leader of Gravel suddenly licked his own fist to taste the makeup and then immediately spat it out. He said it wasn't tasty and neither satisfying nor thirst-quenching. He questioned the point of wearing it unless one really liked it. Now we can see that Tsubakino is getting serious. With an angry look, the leader of Gravel charged at Tsubakino, saying that he didn't feel any jealousy or envy towards people who did meaningless things like putting makeup on their faces. He leaped and delivered a flying kick, saying that people like them would never win against him. Shizuka, Sakura, Nirei, and Suwa were nervous as they watched the fight. However, Tsubakino managed to counter the incoming flying kick with his own high kick, surprising the leader of Gravel. He then performed a backflip to create distance from Tsubakino while watching him with wide eyes. Tsubakino replied that he wore makeup because it made him stronger. The leader of Gravel was shocked by what he heard and asked Tsubakino if he was out of his mind because what he was saying was impossible. Tsubakino explained that it strengthened his heart. Every time he put on makeup, he felt incredibly happy as the person he wanted to be, and because of this, his spirit became stronger. Then, tightening his grip on his fists, Tsubakino said that it wasn't just makeup, but love could also make someone stronger. The leader of Gravel laughed at him, saying he was going crazy. Tsubakino realized that the leader of Gravel had no idea what he was talking about. So, genuinely, he pitied him and said, "Oh, you poor thing." The leader of Gravel's vision darkened, and he wounded his finger again with the strength of his grip. He then furiously charged at Tsubakino, ready to punch. But he was surprised because as he got closer, Tsubakino was also ready to kick, so he tried to catch Tsubakino's attack with his other hand. But this was Tsubakino's plan, and he used the hand that the leader of Gravel used to block as a pivot to perform a spinning back kick that landed with tremendous impact. As the leader of Gravel was sent flying, Tsubakino told him that he wouldn't allow himself to be defeated by someone like him. The leader of Gravel spat out due to the strong impact of the spinning back kick to his stomach. Sakura and the Roppo-Ichiza group were surprised and delighted by this, while the Gravel team was shocked and nervous. The leader of Gravel fell far away and couldn't get up immediately after being hit. As Tsubakino fixed his hair, he told him to stand up quickly because he wanted to show him who he was really up against, the one he was laughing at earlier. We can now see Tsubakino in his unique fighting stance, charging at the leader of Gravel with a barrage of punches. The leader of Gravel managed to block these, and when he crouched to avoid a punch, he immediately counterattacked with an uppercut that solidly hit Tsubakino's nose. Tsubakino's nose bled from this, and he became extremely angry. The leader of Gravel was utterly shocked because he didn't expect Tsubakino to be able to withstand his powerful uppercut and still managed to kick him. He punched Tsubakino in the face again, but it had almost no effect on Tsubakino, and he couldn't believe what was happening. Tsubakino quickly kicked him, but the leader dodged it in a Matrix-like move, all the while thinking it was impossible for a fighter like Tsubakino to grow stronger just from wearing makeup. Seiryu noticed that Tsubakino was finally going full throttle in the fight, and a member of Roppo-Ichiza noticed the fear on the pale faces of the Gravel members surrounding them. While fighting, two other members of Roppo-Ichiza were pleased because it looked like their enemies were now scared of Tsubakino, but Kanji noticed something strange about the Gravel members. Based on what he saw, It seemed that Tsubakino was not the reason they were scared and nervous. The fear in the eyes of the Gravel members was undeniable as they watched their leader seriously fight Tsubakino. Tsubakino spoke again during the fight, saying he loved Shizuka because she was a very kind person, even though she was sometimes clumsy and overly gentle. But most importantly, despite the hardships behind the scenes of the stage and the bar where she sang, she always chose to do what she loved in life and continued to sing. For Tsubakino, Shizuka was a true inspiration who drove him to become a better person every time he saw the love and passion she had. That's why Tsubakino was so furious with the leader of Gravel, who wanted to take Shizuka and her love away from them. However, in their current fight, the leader of Gravel was now able to dodge all of Tsubakino's subsequent attacks. Meanwhile, Tsubakino could no longer evade all the attacks thrown at him by the leader of Gravel, who managed to grab Tsubakino's hair with his right hand and punch him with his left hand. Sakura, Suwa, and Nire were shocked and very worried, and Shizuka was deeply concerned when she saw the leader of Gravel unleashing all his anger on Tsubakino, telling him to shut up. But the leader was greatly surprised to see that Tsubakino was not knocked down by that punch and continued to speak, saying that the pain he was feeling now was nothing compared to the pain of losing love and the things he cherished. As Tsubakino recalled his painful past when he couldn't do the things he loved, and while the leader of Gravel's fist was still on his cheek, he said that compared to that pain, his punches felt like mere scratches. The leader of Gravel was stunned by Tsubakino's intense resilience before he suddenly received a powerful axe kick from Tsubakino that hit his forehead and drove his entire face into the ground. Everyone watched this, and there were various reactions from Sakura's group and Kanji's group. The Gravel members screamed their leader Suzuri's name and rushed to him, deeply worried for their leader. Sakura was shocked by what had happened. Suzuri suddenly raised his hand to show his members that he was okay and told them not to worry and to go back. Sakura wondered what was happening. He noticed that the Gravel members treated Suzuri very differently compared to how they treated their fellow members who were unconscious on the ground, as if Suzuri was very special to them. While wiping the blood from his nose, Suzuri told Tsubakino that he never stopped talking, and besides that, everything he said was too naive, like something out of video games. Now, let's take a look at Suzuri's backstory in a flashback, where we see two children happily sharing a piece of cookie. There was a group of 6 children in a junkyard who always shared food equally with each other, even if it was as small as a cookie. They said that their group started with only 3 members and hoped it wouldn't grow any bigger. But Suzuri told his 5 group mates that it was okay even if their group grew, and no matter how many they were, they would continue to share their food equally among everyone. According to Suzuri, he couldn't remember the last time he felt full, and when they were young, they only ate properly at school. That was their experience in their place, and any child left outside would always fight over things, even a small piece of cookie. But Suzuri hated their situation. He would rather have them all be hungry together, but still smiling and together. He was grateful to everyone who joined him. Because of them, he was no longer a loner. He knew he was also naive when they were young because he used to think that there might still be hope for them to achieve a happy life like the one seen in game posters. He thought there was hope for them to have a happier and more prosperous future, but the reality was that their situation only worsened over time. As the number of people sharing the cookie crumbs grew, the number of cookies they ate did not increase. Then one day, he suddenly realized that no one from their place had the capacity to save lives. He also realized that no matter how long they waited, the prosperous future he dreamed of would never come. And no matter how much hunger they endured, they would never experience being full from food. And the most important realization was the truth that they had no choice but to act to forcibly change their broken reality. We can see that as the friends grew up into tough teenagers, their numbers also increased. One day, Suzuri suggested that they form a team because otherwise, they would just die like stray dogs from hunger. One of them asked Suzuri what he planned for them to do as a team since they weren't known in any industry and had no skills. But Suzuri said they had one thing that would surely be useful. and that was there being a solid group with a significant number. Suzuri explained to them that they could use their numbers as a team as a selling point to offer their services and get paid and rewarded, which they would then share equally. This would remain a rule they all followed until the end. The reason behind this rule was that even if one of them got knocked down in a fight, someone else in the group could work in his place, and they would always have income no matter what happened. From now on, they would all work as a unit. Suzuri asked for their trust, and they gave it to him. They immediately started taking on various contract jobs that required a large workforce. Whether legal or illegal, they did it, whether it was searching for people in different places or standing as support for a group that needed additional manpower. Eventually, the internal conflicts within their group started to decrease, which was a good thing, especially since they could all eat properly and it became easier for everyone to get along. It didn't matter to Suzuri if they were committing acts of crime. As long as the condition of gravel was stable, this was their only choice in life. These were Suzuri's thoughts that he remembered while fighting Tsubakino. Suzuri also said that this was their reality, without magic or miracles like in video games and fantasy dramas. Suzuri recalled what Tsubakino said earlier about the pain of losing love and cherished things. But according to Suzuri, that was just a luxury for those privileged enough to have it, as Suzuri and his companions in gravel had never had anything like that. There was a mix of pity and surprise in Tsubakino's eyes, showing concern for what Suzuri said. Suzuri said that no matter what Tsubakino told him about his life, it all sounded like meaningless things to his ears. It was clear from Tsubakino's eyes that instead of getting angry, he felt even sadder about Suzuri's situation, showing deep inside that he truly pitied him. Even though Suzuri said those things, he still couldn't stop thinking about Tsubakino's words, which only made him angrier. He charged at Tsubakino again, furious and ready to punch, while Tsubakino stood still, serious and seemingly bracing himself. Then, he took Suzuri's punch to the face head-on. The concern was evident on the faces of the 3 members of Roppo-Ichiza. Tsubakino kept his standing posture even though he slid back far from the impact of Suzuri's punch. With blood dripping from his cheek, Tsubakino confronted Suzuri and asked if everything he said was really bullshit. Why did he see the suffering and pain in Suzuri's eyes? Suzuri's reaction showed that Tsubakino hit him right in the heart, and Suzuri couldn't believe Tsubakino read his true feelings, especially about the pain he had carried all his life. Then, while in a fighting stance, Tsubakino said he wanted to know him better. But Suzuri didn't take Tsubakino's message well, so he retaliated and charged at Tsubakino again, angrily saying not to mention meaningless things. Fewer people were participating in the fight now, as most were just watching the duel between Tsubakino and Suzuri. Tsubakino's twin subordinates noticed how kind their boss truly was. Meanwhile, the members of Gravel were still full of concern for Suzuri, as they had never seen him this desperate in their lives. Kanji watched the duel intently, while Sakura watched from a distance. Even from there, they noticed the atmosphere had drastically changed. Seeing Tsubakino and Suzuri's fight reminded Sakura of what he learned from Umemiya, that fistfights are just a form of communication. He was impressed because he saw it himself in Tsubakino. Meanwhile, Shizuka suddenly had a flashback to her painful past where she had no friends at school and nothing to eat when she got home. While watching the intense fight, tears suddenly flowed, and she cried hard. This was also because she knew the hard life Suzuri had, who was now shouting at Tsubakino not to act like he knew him because he didn't understand his life. This brought us back to a flashback when Suzuri was young, where he saw a young boy with his mother at the railroad area. The boy pointed to a video game poster and told his mother he wanted her to buy it for him, but his mother asked why it seemed just like the one she bought for him before. The boy said it was a newer version of the game he was pointing at, but his mother told him to wait for his birthday before he got it. But instead of listening, the boy threw a tantrum and pulled his mother's hand, insisting she buy the game he wanted. Suzuri clung tightly to the metal fence, tearfully suppressing his immense envy. Back to the fight, Suzuri shouted at Tsubakino that people like them, who were privileged, would never understand people like them who had nothing. He then delivered a powerful left kick to Tsubakino, which he blocked with both arms. Tsubakino slid far from the impact again, but remained composed and balanced. Tsubakino then asked Suzuri if he truly believed that he couldn't understand him. Suddenly, he shouted that, of course, he couldn't understand him. Suzuri was surprised by this. Tsubakino explained to Suzuri that even Suzuri couldn't understand him. Probably because they grew up in different places and environments, they couldn't fully grasp each other's experiences and principles, and no person can fully understand another person. But even so, Tsubakino knew and was sure that Suzuri was going through hardships and suffering in his life. Suzuri gritted his teeth at Tsubakino's words. Tsubakino added that it didn't matter if a person was born poor or rich because everyone had their own problems in life, and each person believed that what they were going through was the hardest challenge in life. Suzuri retaliated in anger, shouting as he could no longer speak. As he charged at Tsubakino, Tsubakino told him that even though he knew Suzuri was going through hardships, he still couldn't allow them to take Shizuka by force, who loved them dearly and was very passionate about singing in their bar. Because of this, Tsubakino had to take down Suzuri, so he delivered a super powerful high kick that directly hit Suzuri's chin. Suzuri's body flew quite high due to the impact of Tsubakino's high kick. Everyone reacted differently as they watched the kick, which surely ended the entire fight that night. Suzuri's body fell in defeat, along with some of the other Gravel members lying on the ground. His friends immediately ran to help him stand up. But they were shocked when their leader suddenly shouted at them not to come closer. Despite the difficulty, he forced himself to stand up, thinking that he couldn't afford to lose no matter what. This was because he believed that if he lost now, all of Gravel's progress would be wasted. If he lost now, they would return to the time when they had constant internal conflicts due to hunger. So he forced himself to stand up alone to continue the fight and not give up. Concerned, Tsubakino and the suffering Suzuri looked into each other's eyes, with Suzuri's whole body trembling and struggling to move. He couldn't stand for long and fell to his knees as Tsubakino slowly approached him, the sound of his high heels audible. Suzuri finally collapsed entirely, having exhausted all his strength in the fight, so Tsubakino just stared at him as he approached. Suzuri was furious with himself because, no matter how hard he tried, his body just couldn't move anymore. Meanwhile, Tsubakino suddenly knelt in front of him and sincerely said, "Sorry." Everyone, including Gravel, Roppo-Ichiza, and Sakura's group with Shizuka, was shocked by this, except for Kanji, who looked on seriously. Suzuri looked at Tsubakino with wide-eyed shock and asked him what he was saying. Tsubakino explained that he was apologizing to Suzuri because earlier, despite not knowing anything about him, he still said so much. Tsubakino then shared about his past, saying that unlike now, where he's able to do what he likes, his past was different. Recalling the hardships he endured while trying to fit in with his friends before, Tsubakino told Suzuri that they both suffered greatly. And while remembering Old Man Ito and his wife, Tsubakino told Suzuri that he was just lucky to have kind people who reached out to him and helped him. According to Tsubakino, they were the reason for his current standing, and he was deeply grateful to them. Suzuri became even angrier at Tsubakino's story, thinking Tsubakino was bragging in his face. But that wasn't what Tsubakino meant to convey. Tsubakino explained himself. Although he didn't know the real reason why Suzuri had nothing he wanted, he still saw in him his former self, suffering because he couldn't do the things he wanted. So Tsubakino said he wanted to help Suzuri. Whatever it was that Suzuri needed help with, he would do everything as long as Suzuri told him. Suzuri was shocked by what he heard. The Gravel members also started whispering among themselves. The faces of Sakura's group and the Roppo-Ichiza members were filled with concern and anticipation. Meanwhile, Shizuka and Kanji were on the verge of tears from the emotional conversation between Tsubakino and Suzuri. The twins, Seiryu and Yuryu, were confident in their superior's situation because they knew Tsubakino well. Suzuri was still stunned by what Tsubakino was telling him and couldn't speak or move properly. Tsubakino asked him if there was anything he wanted or wanted to be passionate about. This was because Tsubakino was sure Suzuri wanted something because feeling pain about having nothing meant he wanted something. Tsubakino placed both his hands on Suzuri's hands to show him he was serious about wanting to help him while asking if there was a place he wanted to go, something he wanted to see, or anything he wanted, no matter how simple. Then Tsubakino earnestly promised that he would accompany Suzuri to do what he wanted. Suzuri still got angry and suddenly pulled his hand away, surprising Tsubakino. Suzuri told Tsubakino that everything he said was unrealistic and that his words were too naive. Even if he could help him, what about his companions in Gravel? Their problem was that no decent job was available for people like them that they could do and earn from. Suzuri clarified their situation to Tsubakino, saying they were the type of people who worried about what they would eat every day. So, it was impossible for them to have things they wanted to do. Tsubakino had no response, and Shizuka didn't know what would happen next. Then Kanji suddenly spoke and approached. He shyly mentioned that he remembered his boss was currently looking for hired help at their job. Gravel and Roppo-Ichiza were shocked by what Kanji suddenly said out of the blue. Kanji's 3 friends at Roppo-Ichiza looked at each other and reacted differently to what their boss did. The buzzcut guy said the ramen shops in their area were short-staffed. The long-haired guy said a new business on Nibbon Street needed some employees. And the third guy said he heard some business owners wanted to start expanding. Suzuri couldn't believe the kindness Kanji was showing him, but Kanji clarified that it didn't mean he forgave them immediately. He just wanted to give them an opportunity because he was once like them, and someone also helped him, so his life improved. He truly understood their situation. Kanji said he and Tsubakino both wanted to help him. Tsubakino apologized and thanked Kanji. Suzuri was stunned again, realizing that Tsubakino and Kanji genuinely wanted to help them. Tsubakino then told Suzuri not to give up on getting what he wanted. Suzuri tightened his grip on his fingers, but this time, he didn't make them bleed. This illustrated his current feelings, kneeling sadly and clinging to the fence at the old railroad station. Now, he began to feel hopeful when he saw Kanji and Tsubakino in front of him, with their hands outstretched. Now, he was determined to accept their help. In real life, Suzuri sat down and laughed, saying he was done fooling around. Suddenly, his man-bun's tie came loose, and he said they were all crazy. With a happy and contented smile, he asked what kind of boss fight he had encountered. This hinted that his hidden passion since childhood was still playing video games. Suzuri sat down in an Indian sit, his hair loose, in the middle of the road and the battle that had finally ended. The members of Gravel started talking among themselves, asking if the fight was over. If they heard Suzuri correctly saying he was done, it meant they had lost. Suwa and Nirei suddenly turned around because Shizuka had started sobbing. While crying, Shizuka thanked Tsubakino and Kanji. Nirei then asked Suwa what he could do to have a back as strong as Tsubakino and Kanji, capable of carrying so many burdens. Suwa replied that although he didn't know Kanji, he was sure that both Kanji and Tsubakino had overcome many hardships and painful experiences, which is why they were so incredibly strong now. Sakura clenched his fist with a serious face after hearing his companion's conversation while awaiting the outcome of the battle. Suzuri suddenly managed to stand up, and Tsubakino became concerned, thinking Suzuri might be pushing himself too hard. But Tsubakino was surprised when the leader of Gravel introduced himself as Shuhei Suzuri. Suzuri then asked for their names. The two introduced themselves as Kanji Nakamura and Tetsuku Tsubakino, and then Suzuri asked them to wait a moment as he wanted to talk to all his Gravel teammates first. Suzuri went to his teammates, who had started picking up their comrades lying on the road and helping them stand, while Tsubakino, Kanji, and the entire Roppo-Ichiza watched. Suzuri spoke seriously to Gravel and admitted that he had long wanted to change. He had longed to leave the world where, in their desperation, they fought over a single cookie. He He truly wanted to experience a world with greener pastures. Suzuri acknowledged that he had led his entire group down the same path he had taken, where they committed illegal acts and hurt others just to have something to eat. But he knew this path was wrong, so he had suppressed all his emotions and pretended not to see because he couldn't find another path for them to take. Because of this, he sincerely apologized to them, and their reaction was one of concern and shame. Suzuri said that if he were alone, he wouldn't be able to find another path like the one Kanji and Tsubakino presented to them, so he wanted to give it a try. Suzuri admitted that he had long been hesitant to continue what they were doing in Gravel as a team. He knew that if they didn't take the opportunity they had now, they would lose the chance to take a different path in the future, and he was sure that only despair awaited them at the end of their current path. Suzuri bowed his head in front of his teammates and said he knew he had no right to ask them if they wanted to join him in accepting Kanji's offer because he was the one who led them down the wrong path from the beginning. He closed his eyes and said that no matter what they chose, he just wanted to be with them for better or worse. Suddenly, Suzuri was surprised when one of the Gravel members asked what he was talking about. His teammates told him that if it weren't for him, they would have surely died on the streets long ago. So all they needed from him was his word, and they would follow him no matter what. They reminded Suzuri of his own words that they were a single unit. Suzuri remembered saying this to them when they were teenagers, so he simply thanked them while his teammates welcomed him with happy smiles and warmth. Kanji and Tsubakino were pleased to see this. The members of Gravel, still worried, talked among themselves, wondering if they could handle their new jobs and what would happen if they made mistakes. Kanji then called them fools, saying it was normal to make mistakes at the beginning of a job. Kanji and the entire Roppo-Ichiza smiled at Gravel, and Kanji told them that if there were people who could do everything perfectly from the start, then everyone would lose their jobs. However, Kanji also saw this as humility from them, so he said he was sure they would be fine. As Roppo-Ichiza walked away, Suzuri was surprised when Tsubakino suddenly stopped in the middle and looked at him. Tsubakino said that Suzuri had lied to him because he could see now that even though Suzuri said he had nothing, he had friends who cherished him as their leader. Then Tsubakino continued walking away with Roppo-Ichiza and joined Shizuka and Sakura's group. Nire praised them for their excellent fighting skills, and Kanji thanked the three of them for watching over Shizuka. Shizuka and Kanji were about to start talking when Tsubakino suddenly interrupted by pushing Kanji aside to confront Shizuka, who was a bit nervous as Tsubakino was scowling deeply. Everyone was surprised to hear Tsubakino angrily ask Shizuka if he understood what he had done. According to Tsubakino, Shizuka had disrespected all their feelings. Shizuka was saddened when he realized this, and even though Kanji tried to calm Tsubakino down, Tsubakino silenced him. Tsubakino knew Shizuka was just worried about Kanji and the others and didn't want to continue causing trouble. But Tsubakino said they all felt the same way about Shizuka and were all worried about her. However, Shizuka didn't understand this because it meant they all wanted Shizuka to stay with them. That's why they were so desperate in fighting those who wanted to take her earlier. Tsubakino also mentioned that even Sakura, Nire, and Suwa gave their best because they understood how Kanji and the others felt. But despite this, Shizuka chose to give himself to the enemies even though she knew it would cause great sadness to everyone present. After Tsubakino spoke, everyone remained silent except Kanji, who, though embarrassed, tried to calm the conversation between Tsubakino and Shizuka. But Shizuka told Kanji that she was okay because Tsubakino was right. Shizuka even mentioned to Kanji what Sakura had said to her earlier about swallowing her own feelings. Everyone looked at Sakura, making him suddenly embarrassed and avoiding eye contact. Shizuka continued her explanation. She said she didn't want to see everyone hurt, but she knew it was only because she couldn't face it head-on. According to her, she lacked the strength to trust them all, and she also lacked the strength to reach for her dreams. Shizuka admitted that all her actions were half-assed. Because of this, she bowed in front of everyone and apologized. Tsubakino then asked Shizuka why she hadn't told him about this, while Kanji once again tried to silence Tsubakino, but Tsubakino continued to speak his mind. Tsubakino said he knew Shizuka was hiding something from him, but he didn't ask about it because he trusted that Shizuka would tell him about it when she really needed help. Tsubakino cried to Shizuka, who also started crying, saying he was hurt because Shizuka didn't confide in him about her struggles, even though all Shizuka needed to do was tell him so Tsubakino could help and save her no matter the problem at any time. Everyone watched the emotional moment between Tsubakino and Shizuka as they suddenly hugged each other tightly. While crying and hugging each other, Tsubakino told Shizuka that he forbade her from thinking of herself as a burden in their lives because she didn't understand how much he loved her. Because of this, Shizuka hugged Tsubakino tighter and cried even more. The two apologized to each other while Kanji, the twins, and the others were happy to see the love between them. Later that night, we see Tsubakino blowing his nose into a tissue paper. Since he still couldn't stop crying, he asked Seiryu and Yuryu for another tissue, saying that he was going to become a dry husk with all the water coming out of his body. Seiryu told him that rubbing his nose too much was bad for his skin. We then see that Shizuka was also blowing her nose into a tissue. Tsubakino told her that he knew he had said a lot to her earlier, but it was time to move on from being too serious. Tsubakino suddenly pointed at Kanji, who was also surprised, and told Shizuka it was time to repay the fool who had a crush on her and risked his own body to protect her. Shizuka said nothing, blushing in embarrassment. Kanji was also deeply embarrassed and shouted at Tsubakino, asking what he was talking about. However, all their friends around them were fully supportive of the idea that Kanji and Shizuka should start dating because they were perfect for each other. Suwa asked Sakura for his agreement on everyone's opinion, but when he looked at Sakura, he saw him quietly lost in thought. Sakura suddenly realized everyone was waiting for his reaction. They all knew that Sakura had an ultra-sensitive natural romance sensor, which made his entire face turn red whenever he saw anything romantic. They were curious because he wasn't showing any signs of it now, and thought he might be out of commission. Sakura said his mind was busy thinking about something else. Tsubakino asked him what he was thinking, but he didn't want to say it at first. However, because Tsubakino said they were all worried about him, he finally shared what had been bothering him. The Roppo-Ichiza was surprised and puzzled when Sakura said he didn't really like the way they fought earlier. Nire became anxious for Sakura when he saw Kanji approaching him. But when Kanji got closer, he only asked Sakura what he meant by what he said. Sakura mentioned to Kanji what he said during the fight earlier, that it didn't matter who won or lost, as the only important thing was to protect their street and Shizuka no matter what happened. Kanji admitted that he did say that. Sakura added that he initially thought what Kanji did was impressive, but once he joined the fray, he realized he didn't like Kanji's statement because it meant letting his own friends and comrades get beaten and defeated, which was something Sakura could never accept. And even though Sakura knew that realistically, it was impossible to ensure that no teammate would get hurt, he still didn't like Kanji's idea. As he said this, Sakura compared what happened earlier to his memories of their previous battle against Keel, where he failed to protect his friends. The entire surroundings fell silent, and then Kanji and the whole Roppo-Ichiza suddenly laughed, which angered Sakura. This was the reason Sakura didn't want to share what he was thinking earlier because he knew they would think he was naive. But he was shocked when Kanji told him that it's a good way of thinking. Kanji then pointed at him and told him to stay that way. Sakura was surprised, with a look of realization on his face, when Kanji told him that no one wanted to see their comrades lose. But Kanji had learned to close his eyes and let it happen sometimes if necessary to accomplish their goal. It was true that Sakura's statement was naive, but if he could achieve that naive idea and make it a reality while ensuring all his comrades were safe, it would be the best outcome anyone could wish for. Kanji advised Sakura not to change his mindset and said that since he's strong, smart, and never gives up, he might indeed accomplish a miracle like that one day. Kanji then gave Sakura a big smile, and everyone around them smiled as well. Sakura tried to hide his blush, saying Kanji didn't need to mention that to him. Nire spoke with admiration for their caring grade captain, while Suwa said he was happy to be protected by Sakura. Sakura suddenly got angry and told Suwa he didn't expect him to get beaten up, while Kanji told Tsubakino that the three of them were still very young. Tsubakino agreed that they were amusing. However, Tsubakino warned Kanji once again not to recruit them. Kanji said he wasn't foolish enough to mess with Tsubakino's favorites, but he was just excited to watch Sakura's growth as a leader. It seemed Suzuri had finished talking with his team and approached Kanji. He first apologized for their attack on their street and for causing trouble. He thanked them again for their willingness to help them despite their situation, and Suzuri acknowledged that it was embarrassing for Gravel to accept their help. Then the entire Gravel bowed their heads to them, saying they hoped Kanji would take care of them from now on. Kanji smiled until he realized he had been too hyped earlier and told Suzuri he couldn't really take care of them all. But Suzuri said he knew that, and their initial plan was for whoever among them got a job first to support the others who couldn't find work immediately. After that, they would take care of themselves. Kanji was happy to hear that. Next, Suzuri apologized to Shizuka for everything they had done. Suzuri said he knew Shizuka wouldn't like to see them working on their street because she would be afraid of them. So he told Shizuka that if she ever felt any discomfort from any of them, she just had to let him know. And Suzuri himself would take responsibility for all his team's actions. In the end, Suzuri promised Shizuka that they would never endanger her again. Kanji looked at Shizuka, who seemed hesitant to talk to Suzuri. Shizuka told Suzuri that he was right. She was afraid of them, but she knew they had gone through severe hardships just like her. And just like them, she had been saved by the people from this street. According to Shizuka, she had no right to speak about Roppo-Ichiza helping Gravel and giving them jobs. So she told Suzuri that all they had to do was work hard and strive to repay Roppo-Ichiza for the kindness they had shown them. Suzuri could still see Shizuka trembling in fear and how she had to gather her strength before speaking, so he was deeply grateful to her. Kanji and Tsubakino were pleased to see this. Kanji asked Suzuri if they would be okay because, as far as he understood, their previous job was to kidnap Shizuka for someone. The Gravel members looked at each other, realizing they might be in trouble. But Suzuri assured them they would be fine and that he would handle talking to the person who gave them the job and sort out their problem. Suddenly, a new voice in the area questioned Suzuri's plan to talk. Everyone was surprised to see someone on the rooftop of a two-story building who said no one would listen to a loser like Suzuri, especially when he couldn't do a job properly. This person remarked to himself that he wasn't good at judging people and had a body full of tattoos. He resembled the mysterious person who suddenly appeared at Keel's hideout after they lost to Bo Furin in their battle. He then said he was still content because he saw students from Furin. Sakura was shocked by this. Sakura, Nire, and Suwa wondered how the man knew they were from Furin even though they weren't wearing their uniforms, while Tsubakino just asked the man why he was there. It was evident from Tsubakino's face that he knew the man and was afraid of him. Sakura was surprised to realize that Tsubakino knew this person. The man replied that he was free to go wherever he wanted. The man asked Tsubakino if he was right that things hadn't changed. To him, all happy and enjoyable things were just ways to pass the time until their lives ended. As he said this, he gave a sinister look and smile.